Hi, I'm Julie from Fabric Garden Quilt Shop, and we are now up to installment 4 of our Border Creek Station Mystery Quilt. So what you need to do this month, the very first thing you need to do is do some sewing. Yay, finally! So what you're going to take your fabric from baggie C, and you've got to finally get to use your pretty linen fabric. And then you need to take your 2-inch squares from your baggie F, and I am embarrassed to say that these are all still full. I'm way behind this month, but that's all right. So the first thing you need to do is draw a diagonal line on your fabric F from corner to corner, and then you're going to place it on your fabric C, just like this, and you're going to stitch on that line. So here's a sample here which I have already stitched. Now, the pattern will tell you to just go ahead and trim that. Before you trim it, what I like to do is to go ahead and press this to set your stitches, and then you're going to press it up. And when you've pressed it up, you want to flip your fabric over and make sure that you don't have any of fabric F poking out on this side. And when you flip it this way, you want to make sure that it's not like that. If you're just a hair off, I don't worry about it. But if I am way off, if I've had a bump or something and I end up with a piece that looks like that, I am going to redo it, because if you were to go ahead and trim this and this was not perfect, this square is no longer going to be the correct measurements, which should be 3.5 by 5. So what I will do is I have pressed this up and I've flipped it over. It looks good on that side and it looks good on that side. Like I said, if it was just a hair off, what I would do is just cut out the middle. You can just take your scissors and cut a 1/4 inch seam, leave a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That way, even though you're going to have 2 pieces there, you still have a perfect rectangle. That's the correct measurement. So you're going to do that, and then you're going to repeat it on the other side. This one here I have trimmed, this one here I have sewn, and it looks pretty good, so I'm going to take my rotary cutter and my ruler and I will cut a 1/4 inch seam allowance there, and I will end up with a piece that looks like that. And I should end up for the queen size with 100 pieces. So you're going to sew those up and tidy them away and put them back in your baggie C. Then you're going to move on, and you do have to do some cutting. You need to use fabric 8, which is this pretty fabric here with a big floral on it. It is very easy to confuse that with fabric 9, which is used for the binding. If for whatever reason you have made a mistake and you've cut up fabric 9, I don't really think it's going to matter in the long run. You can give us a call if you need more fabric, but I think that the fabrics are so close it won't matter if you use fabric 9 in the quilt and end up using this for the binding. I think it would be okay. For the queen size quilt, you need to cut, it says 7+ strips that are 2 3/4 inches by width of fabric. I cut 7 strips, and that's all I needed, because you need to cut 100 2 3/4 inch squares. And if you need an 8 strip, then go ahead and cut it, but just start with 7. Like I said, I had plenty of fabric with just 7 strips. Once you have your squares cut, then you need to cut them apart into triangles. And then you get to do some sewing. From baggie, what was that? Baggie E that you did, I believe it was last month, you have some 1/4 square triangles. You've got some that have the green on the left and some with the green on the right. You're going to take your triangle that you just cut, and they need to be sewn to your 1/4 square. So what I will do is just find the center and gently finger press that and then you can line up your fold with the seam on the 1/4 inch on your quarter square, and then make your 1/4 inch seam. And I have this sample right here that I have done, and you can see they're oversized, so we are going to have to trim those. There's 2 different ways you can trim them, and I think the easiest way is with a tucker trimmer, where you need to trim these to 2 inches square. So with a tucker trimmer, it's hard to see on here, but there's a 2-inch line here, and there's another black line here. So I'm going to line the 2-inch on this seam and this line here on there, and I will trim around, and then I'm going to flip it this way, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'll line that up and trim and trim. If you don't have a tucker trimmer, you do need a ruler that has a 45-degree angle on it, and this one does. And what you can do, I'm sorry, I'm so used to using the tucker trimmer, I've got to really think how to use this one. You're going to line the 1/4 inch line, the 45-inch line on your seam allowance, and you're going to be trimming this to 2 inches square. So turn your ruler the right way. So you're going to have your 1-inch mark should line up right there in the with the seam on your 1/4 square triangle. But I've got to get it up here like this, so there we go. I'm sorry, now you can see it. So here's my 45-degree line lined up on my seam allowance, and my 1-inch mark is right there. So now I'm going to trim this. I'm going to have to turn it 4 times, and you're going to repeat and do the same thing all the way around. Once you have those trimmed, you should end up with 2-inch squares. I'm going to back up 1 step. Once you have sewn the triangles together, there is a misprint in the pattern directions. The pattern directions say to press the left unit to the dark square, which I have done, and then they say to press the right unit also to the dark square, but really what they mean is to press it in the opposite direction, because you want them to nest. If you look on the next page, your next step is to sew these 2 together. So you're going to, there we go. They sew like that. And when you flip them over to sew your seam, you can see the 2 seams go in the opposite direction, so they nest nicely. And here is my finished product. And you do need to press the seams open, and that's what they say in the directions. It's really too bulky to press it to one side or the other. Once you have that done, you'll end up with 100 of these little triangle sewn into rectangles, and they should be 2 by 3.5 inches. So you should have 100 of them, and you're going to put them back in baggie E. And you are done until next month. So have fun sewing. Thank you.